Hey everybody, how you doing? This is Robert Rivera with Who's On First This show, and today I bring you David. David wrote a book called Dodgers to Damascus. So, David, introduce yourself.
Well, thank you, Robert. Great to be on. And this is the book. I'll hold it up. It's Dodgers to Damascus, David Lesch's Journey from Baseball to the Middle East. It was written by Catherine Nixon Cooke, who's an acclaimed local author here in San Antonio. And I was very fortunate. She's a brilliant writer, so I was very fortunate that she had to be brilliant to make me look halfway good in this book. But it's a journey from, how I became the number one draft pick of the Los Angeles Dodgers in the 1980 winter draft. That process, how I got there, some really interesting stories on recruitment, how I was supposed to be drafted by the Brewers, Milwaukee Brewers, but I went to the Dodgers instead, which was great in retrospect. But my rather brief professional baseball career was marred by injury after injury. Clearly, my body just wasn't made for the rigors of baseball. I was a pitcher, and ultimately I had a rotator cuff injury, and the Dodgers released me in 1981. So I had to pivot. And I think the book is in many ways a story of how to pivot. How to transition when you lose your job. Basically what I did. You know that's called you're getting released, but that's just a euphemism for getting fired. You get fired from your job, and you have this dream of pitching in the major leagues. So what do? You go back to the drawing board, you find another passion. And I found that in international relations and specifically Middle East studies, Middle East history. And so I went back to college, went on to graduate school at Harvard University to get those degrees, MA and a PhD. And I was fortunate enough to, get in the job market to land here at Trinity University in San Antonio, which is a wonderful place, smaller schools, small class sizes. And from there, I just got engaged more and more in the Middle East, particularly in Syria and also the Arab-Israeli conflict. And to make a long story short, I've written, I've had published 18 books on the Middle East, almost all of them on the Middle East, and became something of an unofficial diplomat and consultant to a number of presidential administrations from George W. Bush all the way through today with Donald Trump and everybody in between. And became a consultant to the UN, to some European governments, Middle East governments on Middle East issues, and most particularly Syria. And I think one of the hooks in the book is not only baseball to Middle East, academia and Middle East, but also I got to know former Syrian President Bashar al-Assad very well at a personal level. And I met with him on a number of occasions between 2004 and 2009. And that at a time when certainly Syrian U.S. relations were not very good. And so I became kind of an unofficial liaison between Washington and Damascus. And I think one of the stories, Robert, of this book that kind of carries through is that sports played a big role. As you know, I mean, at the core of sports is failure, right? You hit three, you get a hit 3 out of 10 times. You're only correct 30% of the time, and you get in the Hall of Fame. As a batter, and as a pitcher, some days you have it, some days you don't. You have good innings, you have bad innings. One game you give up the game-winning run in the bottom of the ninth, and the next game you pitch a shutout. So you have to come back from failure in sports. You have to be resilient. You got to be persistent and persevere through all this stuff. And I think I did pretty well with that, and I think sports really laid the foundation for that.
Okay. Wow, that's a heck of a road there. I mean, number one
A
draft,
lot covered, man.
Middle East conflict over here. That's you know what? But it's still the same kind of thing. You're a pitcher. You're in the middle of a conflict. I want to
Exactly.
hit a home run. You want to strike out. We're in a conflict here.
Well, what they tell you, Robert, they say go out, battle out there, battle them, defeat them, beat them down,
Yeah, yeah.
and it's a lot of the same language. It's I think that's one of the things too. I have anyone who's played sports, as you know, I mean, you have this competitiveness, especially if you advance to the highest levels, and a lot of times when I'm involved in Middle East negotiations, I mean, they fail all the time, and stuff goes wrong all the time, and stuff out of your control. And so it's that competitiveness that keeps me in the game. that, I want to, I'm not going to let these guys beat me. I'm going to try my best to get this resolved. And you're going to fail, and you're going to fail, and you're going to fail, and maybe at some point you succeed. Who knows?
So, I mean, now going into baseball, you came out of high school, went into college, getting the draft. How is it getting that phone call that you got drafted?
Well, it's a kind of an interesting story. I mean, I got on the radar screen of Major League Scouting bureaus when I was the lead pitcher on the national championship team out of Baltimore. I grew up in Baltimore, called Johnny's. It's a very famous team. Reggie Jackson played on it. Al Kaline played on it. A number of other, former major leaguers. And we won the national championship in the summer of 1979. I was the lead pitcher. And instead of going, I had some offers from, the University of Texas, Stanford, Florida, some of the major powerhouses in Division I baseball. But the general manager of Johnny's was also a Milwaukee Brewers scout. And he said, David, instead of going to one of those big schools, go to this small school, a community college, actually, a 2-year school called Central Arizona College, in the middle of freaking nowhere. I mean, the middle of the desert. Call it like a military baseball school, because you went there and you studied, ate, drank baseball, and you played baseball, and they groom you to be drafted. And the Brewers also sent me there to be hidden. In other words, they didn't want any other major league scouts from any other major league teams to see me, so that they could draft me before the Brewers could get me. That year, the year before that, Brewers had a really good record, so they chose late in the first round. And so I would go out to practices, and I'd be warming up or something, or doing wind sprints in the field, and the coach would come out and say, "Hey, David, go lift some weights or go back to your room." And I found out later on he was hiding me from other major league scouts who have to register with the coach in order to see those players. Wow. But the Brewers, this was not supposed to be done. This was, I guess I was glad at least one team wanted me, but the Brewers, were trying to hide me. And one day, how I ended up with the Dodgers is that I was walking back from the baseball field to my dorm after practice in the fall of 1979. We were playing fall ball, and I hear this whistle, and all this stuff's in the book. But I hear this whistle, and it's some elderly gentleman, and he's pointing down like this. Come here, point down. He's And he leaves, and I go, and there's a note under some pebbles to keep it from flying off. And the note said, "Tomorrow at 4, during practice, go out to the bullpen, bring a catcher, and start throwing." And I went, okay. I was there with a buddy of mine too. He was laughing his ass off, and so the next day I went out 4 o'clock. And I'm starting throwing to this catcher in the bullpen, and the bullpen's way out, far left field near the fence. And all of a sudden, I hear this guy, kind of whistling. And I look back, and it's that elderly gentleman in the bushes behind the fence, the home run fence, the outfield fence. We had a bunch of bushes there, and he's like, going like this through the bushes, so he could see me pitch, because they were preventing him from seeing me pitch in regular practice. And he's saying, throw a fastball, throw a curveball now, throw a changeup. He was saying, one time he said, Rod Carew was up 0-2. What are you going to throw him? So I threw him high and tight, pretending he was at the plate. And my catcher again was cracking up, because there's this old guy back there through the bushes. And so that's how the Dodgers drafted me. He was the head of their the head West Coast scout, and based on that, they drafted me number 1, 10th overall in the country a few months later in January 1980. But I think, Robert, I really do think the fact that the Central Arizona coach and everybody were hiding me so much probably pumped up my value more than I actually deserved, because they're saying, "Oh, he's hiding this guy. He must be the next Sandy Koufax or Tom Seaver," and I wasn't, I wasn't, and so maybe that pumped up my value, number one, and thankful for that, but my career didn't last too long. Well, your question actually was, what it was like to get that call, and I got the call from the LA Dodgers. I was shocked. I was like, wait, you're not, you weren't supposed to draft me. And then we got a call from the coach of the Central Arizona team. He said, "What are you going to do? Are you going to sign with the Dodgers? We want you, wait till June draft, and the Brewers will get you." And I said, "Well, we're thinking of." I didn't say we were. I said we were thinking about it. My dad was there, and then my dad called Cal Ripken Sr., of course, the father of Cal Ripken Jr. I grew up in the same county, and Cal Jr. and I played against each other quite a bit. I didn't know him real well, a little bit, but my dad got a hold of his dad's number, Cal Ripken Sr., who was a coach with the Baltimore Orioles at the time, and asked, what do we do? How do we negotiate? What do you think about, David signing with this? And he said, two things. One, the Dodgers are a great organization. And two, you may not be drafted number one ever again, no matter what. You could be injured or you have a bad season in college. And so for that, we decided to sign with the Dodgers. And it was the time of not the big bonus babies, and we did okay. But my dad, God bless his soul, he negotiated something. He said, "Well, how about if you're not going to come up on the signing bonus, how about you pay for my son's college? If when he goes back to college." And they said, "Sure, that'd be great," thinking that'd be a good deal for them because they figure maybe I'll have a baseball career, major league career, being a number one pick. I'll never go back to college anyway. Little did they know, I went back for my BA, my MA, my PhD. They probably got rid of that type of deal because of me, because this guy, he's never going to get out of college. We got to pay him all this stuff. But what was great about it, Robert, is that I got into Harvard University, but it was expensive. We weren't rich, and I probably would have said no if not for the Dodgers paying for a good bit of the tuition for graduate school at Harvard. So thank you, Dodgers, for that. And I'm sure they were saying, "Is this guy ever going to get out of college?" He's losing money on him now. But so it was interesting how that came back around.
So now pitching back in those times, what was your fastest? How hard could you throw?
And in spring training, they had the jugs gun on me, and I got up to 95 miles an hour. As you know, back then that meant something. These days everybody throws that. I mean, low 90s. I can't believe sometimes you're watching a game and there's a low 90s changeup, a changeup. It used to be about a 10-mile-an-hour difference, so if you throw about 90, the changeup would be about 80. But these guys throwing 100, so their changeup is about 90, 91. But back then, of course, that's why they're all getting Tommy John surgery, because there's so much stress on the arm.
It's starting to become, I'm starting to see a lot of young kids in high school, in junior high school, little league, senior ball. It's a prerequisite before you even get into college that you get Tommy John surgery.
I know, and some of them have two of them. They blow out their arm again later on, and so that was my best pitch. I had a pretty good changeup. I had a 12-6 curveball, which you don't see much anymore. It had a big drop. I tried a slider for throwing one, but it hurt my back for some reason. I just couldn't do it. I tried a splitter. Fork. We used to call it forkball, but called a splitter, and that never really developed. So I had the fastball, but I never really developed a great secondary pitch. So even without my injury, I don't know how far I could have gone. Because everyone, most people would throw a good fastball and all that.
Right.
But the injuries just piled up. I had on my spring training at Vero Beach. At the time, the Dodgers were at spring training complex at Dodgertown in Vero Beach, and I was running wind sprints in the outfield and stepped in a hole throughout my back.
Oh wow!
And that took me out for the first month, so I had to go to extended spring training, to rehabilitate. And then after that, I got assigned to what in essence is low A ball today, the Lethbridge Dodgers in Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada, in the Pioneer League, which I think is independent league. And about a week or two in, I developed an ulnar nerve injury because you know what happens when you get one injury, my back, I was favoring my arm, I want to hurt my back again, subconsciously. And so that was really, it was an ulnar nerve paralysis. I couldn't feel my arm for like a month and a half. And I finally got the pitch toward the end of the year. Uh, and, uh, and, I had it was not a career. And again, it just off and on with injuries. I ended up 1-0, but that win, to be honest about it, was when I blew the save and the team came back and won.
So you owed
So,
everybody a steak dinner, huh?
yeah.
You owed everybody a steak dinner.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it was interesting. I mean, I really value the experience. It was humbling for me because, I'd always been the star or one of the stars on every team since, I started playing at 7 or 8 years old, every league. And this one, we won the championship that league. In fact, I have the ring, no diamonds on it because it's minor league. But I didn't have anything to do with it. I was virtually a non-entity. So that was humbling for me, and ultimately a good experience, though.
So when you were in spring training, when you look to your left, who do you look to your right? What were the big names that you saw? You were like, oh,
Oh my God, I got a great story, and that's a great question because the Dodgers at the time, they were the only club where at spring training the major leaguers and minor leaguers were together at that time. They were the only club. All the other clubs separated them, so you didn't get to see the major league players, but they were apart. We all stayed at Dodger Town. You ate with them. You played ping pong with them. But my first day at spring training, I was nervous enough, right? The minor leaguers were in this part, and the major leaguers are walking by, Ron Say and Steve Garvey and Reggie Smith, Davey Lopes, all these guys, and they're going to the major league park, which was right there. And Tommy Lasorda comes by, the Hall of Fame manager, and I was in the front row. We're stretching. The pitchers, minor league pitchers, were stretching. And he goes, you, and you, come with me. And I was one of them. I was like, oh, crap, what's this? He said, you're going to throw batting practice to the major leaguers. And I was like, oh, you're kidding me. This is blowing me away. I'm 20 minutes in, and, I got to throw. And I was first up. Ron Say was up first. These are all, as you know, all-star, perennial all-stars, borderline Hall of Famers, championship teams with the Dodgers. Ron Say, Steve Garvey, Reggie Smith, Bill Russell, and Davey Lopes. The famous core of those Dodgers teams. And Ron Say was up first, and I was throwing batting practice. Now, I had never thrown, those screens that protect the pitchers from those 110 mile an hour line drives, because you're just trying to groove it. You're pitching to help with their timing. You're not trying to strike them out or anything. You'd a nice 85 mile an hour fastball right down the middle, whatever. And there was that screen, and since I was a right-hander, the right upper square is gone. The net is there to allow the ball to go through from your arm. I had never used that before in my life. And so I warmed up in the bullpen, came in, and they started right away. And I said, oh, man. And so I short-armed it because I was afraid my arm was going to hit the screen. And when you short-arm it as a right-hander, the ball goes up and in, right? And I short-armed it, and it went right at the head of Ron Say. And he's crashed to the ground in a cloud of dust. He got up and gave me the meanest look. And I thought, honest to God, I thought I was going to have the shortest pro baseball career ever. I was going to get released for almost killing, one of the all-stars. No matter I'm a first-round draft pick, who cares? But you talk about resilience and perseverance. I mean, that was a huge lesson for me because I did fine. I pitched to all of them. Steve Garvey said, "Great job, kid." Tommy Lasorda said, "Yeah, really good job, kid. Now get out of here. Go back to the minor league complex." And honest to God truth. I mean, I've done a lot of work with some very powerful people, presidents, prime ministers, kings, queens, foreign ministers over the years in these negotiations in very difficult things. I've gone into active war zones. I've put myself at risk during the Syrian civil war. I've never been as nervous as I was that day at Dodger Town, my first day of professional baseball, and I got through it. So I've never been very nervous about anything. since that time because of that experience, because I got through it and I did okay, you know.
Wow.
So that's another case where baseball helped prepare me. At least my experiences helped prepare me for later on in life.
So now you got released from the Dodgers. How was that? And what was your thought process once you got that? Hey, we're gonna let you go. And what happened?
Yeah, I kind of saw it coming. Again, I was at extended spring training after my second spring training because of an injury, which eventually turned out to be the rotator cuff. And when you have a rotator cuff, my 95-mile-an-hour fastball went down to like 82.
Oh
You know,
wow.
and it's like a roller coaster. Some days you're loose and you feel good. Some days it's just really stiff and you can't you can barely throw the ball. And then of course there's the associated pain. So when the manager called me in, I remember one of my teammates. This was down in St. Petersburg, the Mets complex, because that's where the extended spring training was that year. And he said, "Oh, you're going to get promoted." And I go, "No, I don't think so," because I hadn't been doing very well, and my the jugs gun was recording that my velocity was down. And so he called me in and said, "David, how do you think you've done?" I said, "Well, mixed results, really. Not where I want it to be." And he said, "Well, we've decided to release you." And I took it pretty much in stride. I have to admit, because it just I kind of saw the writing on the wall. And I wasn't diagnosed with rotator cuff then. I could feel the pain. I was diagnosed after when I got back to Maryland after I was released. Went back home to Maryland and I was diagnosed by an orthopedic surgeon and they didn't have the surgery at the time,
Right.
to correct it. So I was damaged goods. And then I just went back to school. I tried a few things. I thought maybe physical therapy, because it's related to sports. I thought business. And I finally found some great professors, as usually happens. I got really turned on to Middle East politics through two professors who were great, fantastic. I was at the University of Maryland, Baltimore County. That's where I got my undergraduate degree, and they were fantastic. Robert Friedman and Lou Cantori, and they were well known in the field too. That just happened to be there. I didn't go there for them. I went there because it was close by and it was cheap. I got in-state, tuition. And so that's what I try to do today. Hopefully as a professor I can turn on some students to Middle East history or politics and everything, and help them create a future for themselves. So
All
that's how that transition occurred.
right. Now, when I hear the word Damascus, I think Damascus like a knife and the shading and stuff.
Yeah,
Explain
yeah.
to everybody where Damascus is.
Yeah, Damascus is the capital of Syria, and it's one of the few cities in the Middle East that claim to be the oldest continuously inhabited city on Earth, but has a long and storied history and past. It was the center of the Umayyad Caliphate in medieval Islamic history, and of course, in modern times, it became a country. The way it looks now after World War I, and the European powers who were, making the decisions on the disposition of the defeated powers, the Ottoman Empire at the time, basically drew these artificial borders. And even Syria going back centuries is kind of where it is now. They claim it really, more territory than what they actually have. But it's a wonderful place. It gets a bad reputation and probably deserved on occasion. It's a country that's very fragmented in terms of different religions. The dominant religion is Sunni Islam, and Sunni Arabs are the dominant group, but there's Christian Arabs, there's other Muslim minority sects in there. So it's very fragmented. And in modern times, since it became a country so late, really, after World War II, in a place that was coveted by everybody because of the oil, and it's the center of the three great Semitic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, everybody wants a piece of it. And so it never really had a chance to develop in an evolutionary fashion, free from outside interference. And due to that, as well as its internal fragmentation, the only thing that could keep it together was a military dictatorship. And that's kind of what happened when, Hafez al-Assad came to power in 1970 and his son took over in 2000 when his father died. And his son, of course, was just overthrown. by an opposition group following a 15-year civil war, brutal civil war, this past December. So I still have trouble saying the former Syrian president Bashar al-Assad because he was there such a long time.
You ever thought, like, when you got two of these presidents in there and the war factions, you ever thought around and said, hey, listen, why don't we just play a game of baseball and see who wins?
The Civil War, right? The American Civil War. Remember, they used to take breaks, the North and South, and play baseball games. You know?
Let's stop here. You get 9 of your best guys. We do a sandlot in the middle of the desert over here, and we just,
all dirt field, right?
All dirt field. Whoever comes out, comes out. You know what I mean? We
can
do a World Series. The best of 7. Let's do that.
Yeah, I think they prefer their version of football. Of course, soccer. They don't know much about baseball, but something like that. Yeah, exactly. Sports is a great healing mechanism. I don't know, but those football crowds, soccer crowds in Europe, man, they go nuts after each other. So maybe not a good idea.
So, I mean, you say baseball has prepared you for a lot of things, and how about, I mean, not only going to Damascus and negotiating treaties and stuff like that. How about just in life? What has baseball taught you?
Yeah, it's taught me to be resilient. Life is, as you know, man, it's a series of ups and downs. I've had I've had my share. I'm not gonna say I've had more than my share, but I've had my share. And but I'm doing all right. Came through them. But I think, as we said earlier, at the core of sports is failure. So, if things go bad, just keep trying. And I think that's the thing, that I think I take into life itself is keep trying. Hang in there, and if you have to pivot, pivot. If you have to transition to something else, go ahead. And you can do it because I've done it. I went from baseball to this, to academia, to diplomacy. So, which is about as opposite as you can get. And it's worked out pretty well. And so I think sports, for me, maybe not for everybody, but for me, has really taught me to hang in there and know that, after a couple of down moments, maybe an up moment is due, so that's okay.
Yeah. You're a professor.
Correct?
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
You ever had like a baseball kid in your class and you go, hey, he goes, hey, I need a tip. Yeah. You can have some extra credit. And by the way, get it off the fingertip a little bit, snap it just a little bit. It'll cut a little harder. You ever give him one of those?
I tell you what, Robert, I had one of my most depressing experiences ever. Yeah, I used to be the cool professor because they find out about my baseball background.
Oh,
I guess about 15 years in, I was getting older, some gray hairs coming out. And a student came up to me afterwards and said, I found out that, you played baseball, professional baseball. And then he said, you don't look like the type, but you don't look like an athlete. Just, I was about ready to fail him right there, right then and there, get out of here. But that was so depressing because there were no physical remnants from from my athletic youth or whatever. But what's interesting, in fact, this just happened yesterday. I went down. Trinity University has they're Division III, but they have a baseball program and a pretty nice field. And I went down to the field for a particular reason for the first time in a number of years, and they had AstroTurf, but they had AstroDirt.
AstroDirt, yes.
Yeah, there's no dirt. I had never seen anything like that. I was like, what the hell is this? I asked the kid, I mean, do you wear spikes or something? He goes, yeah. And of course the ball bounces differently and there's no dirt. Even on the pitcher's mound, there's no dirt. And remember pitchers, you used to dig your right foot in if you're a right-hander, left foot if you're a left-hander, and get a little crater in there right in front of the rubber. You can't do that there. I was the most bizarre thing, and apparently this has been going on for a little while in a lot of programs. I guess it's for money saving, cost saving reasons.
Maintenance.
Maintenance. Yeah.
All the maintenance.
Yeah, exactly. But that's the first thing I'd never seen. AstroDirt, fake dirt. I mean, they color it. They color it brown.
Yeah. And you know what? You can put the lines down once and not have to worry about it anymore.
Exactly. And I guess at a Division III school, you don't have the athletic budget, but I wonder if do any of the top like SEC programs, do they do that stuff too, or are they?
Some of them do.
Some of them do, yeah.
I know the Savannah Bananas did their whole infield the same way.
Same way. Wow.
They have their whole field, no maintenance, no nothing. It's one of their in Savannah, Georgia.
Yeah.
They did the whole infield. I was lucky enough to get some dirt from old Grayson Stadium, so
Okay.
I have some dirt. I have anywhere I can get dirt, I get dirt. I got dirt from Miami. I get dirt from Yankee Stadium. I get dirt.
Sure.
I go and get dirt. That's one
That's
of my.
great. Well, it may not be able to do that much longer. I wonder if that'll ever go into the major leagues. I hope not. I mean,
Well, you get Miami, you have the outfield and the infield, they still have dirt.
mm,
Actually, when I was in Miami, I saw the guy, he was like removing some of the dirt. So I went
uh-huh.
up there with a Ziploc bag and I was like, hey, can you? And he just like looked at me, was like, what? I was like, can you just like a little shovel right there? Can you just like pour some? And he just like, he's like, okay. And he went, and then he poured some in the bag and he's like, you're good? Oh, perfect. Thank you. And I like ran away. You ever broker a deal and like at the end of it, everything goes through, it goes smooth, and you got that stomach and pit in your stomach going, man, this is not gonna work. And it comes through. You ever do
Yeah, I mean, there was this one. We were during the Syrian civil war, which roughly from about 2011 until I guess officially Bashar al-Assad was overthrown last year. It was around 2000, late 2015, early 2016. You might recall that the Syrian opposition was very fragmented. That's one of the reasons they couldn't overthrow Bashar al-Assad for a while, because they couldn't get their act together, and they couldn't negotiate a peace either. And so our group, this initiative that I led, we brought a number of Syrian opposition leaders together, 20, 30 of them, and we got them to agree to a similar idea of what they wanted to see the future of Syria look like, so that they could have more leverage in negotiating with the Syrian president Bashar al-Assad and his government. I don't know if that would have worked, but we were very happy that we were able to do that. It was meticulous. It took months. Well, by then, in January 2016, Russia had come in on the side of Bashar al-Assad. And essentially, the Russians became the Syrian Air Force. Well, in January 2016, they entered the country as the Syrian Air Force, basically in September 2015. Well, in January 2016, they went on a bombing campaign, and about a fourth of the delegates that we met with and got to agree to this thing were killed in the bombing campaign. They weren't purposely going after them; they were just happened to be in the wrong place, wrong time. And so all our efforts, meticulous efforts for months, and you have that nervous feeling because you figure something's going to happen. It always does. In the Middle East, something bad's going to happen. We didn't expect that, but you had to go back to zero. So you had that pit in your stomach, that nervous knot, and it's like, can we keep this? Can we keep this together? We were very happy and pleased that we got that far, but then it just all went to hell.
What advice would you give to a young kid that nowadays these guys they guy that flunk out of college or
Yeah.
advice would you give?
Just find your passion. Find something you're passionate about that you really love doing, and hopefully you can make a career out of it. I mean, sometimes you can't, and so find your passion and hobbies or something to make your life interesting, and just keep trying. Be resilient, keep trying. Don't fear failure. Failure is good. It's good. I mean, you learn from it. I mean, you hopefully you're successful every now and then, but you learn from it, and so don't be afraid of it. I remember one student came in at Trinity University. He goes, I want to do what you do when he goes in his career, and I said, okay, well, how many times have you failed? And he goes, none. He thought he was being, I haven't failed at all. I'm ready to go. And I go, well, come back after you fail about 10, 12 times, and then I'll talk to you. And then you'll have a better idea
Absolutely.
of life, and how to be resilient. So that's what I would tell.
All right. Well, guys, thank you, David, for being on. I appreciate it so much.
It was fun, Robert. I really enjoyed it.
Absolutely. Go get the book, Dodgers, from the Dodgers to Damascus. Show them the book again. Where can we get the book at?
You can get it on Amazon, wherever you get your books, Amazon, Barnes & Noble. Yeah, Dodgers to Damascus, David Lesch's Journey from Baseball to the Middle East by Nixon Cooke.
Yeah.
And it's a good read. There's a lot of, again, she's a brilliant writer. You learn about the Middle East too, and not just my life.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, David, thanks for being on again. And
My pleasure, brother.
yeah, as we say here on Who's On First, what do we say? Keep swinging.
If you like the show, please do me a favor. Subscribe. Right. You see it? It's right there. Subscribe, share, like, and don't forget, put that bell on. It'll ding you when I put something else on, all right?